first audience speaker. Her name is Catherine Brogan. She's from Australia, and she currently works in a private equity advisory, and Catherine will talk to us about injecting a bit of creativity into a traditionally non-creative industry. So please welcome Kat.
Hi. I wanted to kick off by also asking you guys to raise your hands this morning if you would describe yourselves as creative. So kind of obvious, I would hope that would be the answer, but basically everyone here today thinks that they're creative. Okay. And yet, according to a recent study by Adobe, only 4 in 10 adults describe themselves as creative, which means 60% of us are walking around thinking that we're not creative. And so really I just wanted to come here today and talk about why we need to change that mindset. So this is kind of the first talk I've ever given, so bear with me, but I was asking some people for some advice, and one tip I was given was to think about who the audience was. So obviously this is Creative Mornings, so I figured the audience would look something like this. So that's some artists, designers, photographers, that kind of thing. But for me, when I look at things like that, the problem is I don't really resonate with those types of images, because if I was to describe myself in an image, it would look more like this. Because I'm basically a total geek. Like I'm talking top of my class in primary school, high school, university, medal, that kind of thing. Or perhaps I'd use an image like this, because I've always studied and worked in finance. So I studied accounting, I did my master's in economics, my first job was M&A at Goldman Sachs, and right now I work in private equity. So you're all probably thinking, what the hell am I doing giving a talk here today? And up until about a year ago, I would have completely agreed. But that all changed one Friday night. So I was living in New York at the time, and so it was Friday night, so most people are out partying. But sadly, my Friday night looked like this. So I'd basically been working like crazy, early mornings, late nights, weekends in the office. And so by the time Friday night rolled around, all I wanted to do was go home and crash into bed. But then I remember thinking to myself as I lay there, like, what the hell am I doing? Like, New York is this amazing city, and yet all I'm doing is working and sleeping. So I basically had this complete Jerry Maguire type meltdown and decided that I was going to change, and I was going to start doing all these activities and sign up for all the things you could do in New York and meet all these amazing people. And so I basically spent the next year doing that. So I got really into art and loved checking out street art. This is actually Tennessee, but very cool. I went to the opera at Lincoln Center. I got back into reading and writing and used to hang out at the New York Public Library. I loved just spending my weekends strolling around New York, checking out street art, listening to musicians. I attempted to juggle, not very good. I took cooking classes. I tried my hand at improv, which was totally mortifying. I would spend weekends just checking out architecture. You know, the list goes on. I could just spend my whole 7 minutes showing photos. But really, I think in one word, if I were to describe what happened in that year, is I kind of became creative. But in order to get creative in my personal life, I had to get creative at work as well. Because, for example, if it was 6 o'clock and I was given a 4-hour task to do that needed to be done that night, the old me would have just ordered takeout and stayed in the office all night. But the new me had things that I wanted to do. So suddenly I was looking for creative ways to do the same task, but in a fraction of the time. And so it turns out that being creative really impacted pretty much every aspect of my job. So, for example, when I was going out and meeting new clients, instead of just asking the obvious question that anyone in finance would ask, like, what's your return on investment? I was asking about the people, you know, like what inspires them, what keeps them up at night. Or doing things like improv, which was totally mortifying, helped me get comfortable at situations that I would find uncomfortable, kind of like this talk right now. And so it kind of gave me the courage to start asking the questions at work that I used to be afraid to ask, or like voice opinions that I would have been afraid to voice. And so really, I think what happened was that tapping into my creativity helped me get better at my non-creative job. And the proof is really in the pudding, because even though I was ultimately working fewer hours, I ended up getting a pay rise, I got promoted, and I was just a hell of a lot happier at work. So since then, I kind of did some digging into the research around creativity and the impact that it has for business, and not just on creative businesses, but every business really. And some of the findings are pretty interesting. So this same research shows that being more creative makes you a better worker and a better leader. Investing in creativity brings success, it fosters innovation, it leads to satisfied customers and ultimately to financial success. And investing in creativity increases employee productivity and makes for happier employees. And again, like the list could just go on and on. So for example, being a creative thinker really helps you come up with unique ideas. But not just ideas, I guess, that are a little different, but sometimes ones that are more daring. And I think having a creative mindset really sort of helps guard against the whole, oh, we've always done it that way mentality. And frankly, working in finance, like, I see that all the time. And I think what's also important is that creativity is only going to get more important over time, because technology is automating a lot of the routine stuff that we're doing, and so we're going to be required to do all sort of the creative work. And so I haven't forgotten, today's theme is obviously Pioneer. And so I guess when I think about sort of the research and also sort of my experience over the last year or so, if I were to able to pioneer a change in the world, it would really be to show those 60% of people who don't think of themselves as creative that not only can you become creative, but you need to be in order to be successful in today's world. And so I think what's really great to see, if I think about people who are already pioneering that movement, is that there are so many examples of people in, say, the creative industry who are really leading that charge, encouraging us to be creative, shining a light on the benefits that creativity has for the workplace. But I think, sadly, what I see less of is people in non-creative industries who are leading that same charge. So frankly, we need to do a better job at not just encouraging our own, embracing our own creativity, but also I think at valuing the contributions that people like yourselves are making every day. And so I really just kind of wanted to come up and speak today to say that, you know, as someone from the non-creative side, you know, to take a first step towards bridging that gap, and to really, I guess, encouraging people to embrace their creativity and welcoming more and more people like myself into the community that we have here at Creative Mornings. So I wanted to end with a quote by Brené Brown, who's far more articulate than me, and I think she sums it up pretty well. Because there is no such thing as creative and non-creative people, only people who use their creativity and people who don't. Okay?
Thank you, Kat. That was fantastic. So we'll have a Q&A session at the end, so please remember to write down your questions and save them for later. Okay, so our next speaker is Clarence Kit. He is originally from Hong Kong with a bit of Canadian background. I'm one of those. And he's a service designer and illustrator. And Clarence will talk to us about pioneering creativity by confronting his insecurities and taking some risks through some very interesting encounters. So please welcome Clarence.
Thank you. Hi everybody, good morning. My name is Clarence. When I think of the word pioneer, I picture a submarine delving into the deep, dark ocean, kind of exploring uncharted territory and finding possibilities within it. And today for my talk, I'm going to be saying how that territory was actually my insecurities. So 3 things you need to know about me. 1, I'm an introvert. 2, I struggle with social anxiety. And 3, I'm a teetotal. So being all 3 things at once, being in a fast-paced city like Hong Kong has always been difficult, and finding a sense of belonging was never easy. So I'm just going to start with a story. It happened earlier this year, actually. I went to a social networking event, reluctantly, but I pushed myself, and it advertised itself to be very diverse, which was really good to me. And so I rocked up and nudged my way awkwardly into a group conversation, and before long, a lot of questions started rolling in. Where are your friends? You're here alone? Why? You're one of those sociopathic introverts, right? Because I know so many people like you back at the bank. Hey, wait. What do you actually do? Wait. I want to guess. Banker. Lawyer? Doctor, right? Please don't tell me you're in the arts community, because you'd be a disappointment to your family, right? You're joking, man. What is that? Water? You probably can't handle it. There I was, lost in the middle of it all. See, my biggest insecurity was never that I was quiet. It was that somehow my whole life I've been living it wrong. And this is a feeling I'm very familiar with when I was a kid. To kind of protect myself from these feelings and scenarios, I devised at a very young age a list of rules that I was going to abide by. And they were all pretty restricting. See, the real reason I don't drink is because the first time I knew about alcohol was because of my dad. My dad is a pretty private person. He doesn't talk much, but as a kid, I noticed that a lot of the times he would have a beer in his hand. And every time the beer can popped, I could notice a change in the atmosphere. He was a lot angrier. And my mom's advice was just to go in your room, don't bother, give him his space, don't talk to him. And so I did. And when I did that, I learned really quickly that I had to read people in order to have the faintest grasp of what was happening in the household. I couldn't ask them because in the Chinese culture, people don't want to talk about their feelings. So what I got from my dad was that he was withholding a lot of pain. And I knew that it was kind of associated with the drinking. And so from an early age, I was like, I don't want to experience that. Little did I know that this was going to be the subject of a lot of judgment in high school. I think especially as a guy, I got called things all from sissy, weak, square, pussy, and yeah, some senior students actually told me, you don't know how to live life. And not knowing better, I kind of believed them. And what I did was that I hid home. I did what I knew best. Locked myself in my room, and I said bye. And that's when I became increasingly insular. And when you spend so much time at home, you have to pass the time somehow. And that's when I discovered a lot of movies and cartoons and Studio Ghibli, and it led me to this film. And the first time I watched it, I cried so much, and I had no idea why. I was 10 years old, I was just like bawling. And only later did I piece the puzzle that this was the first time I've ever identified someone that seemed like me, even though she was fictional. For those who don't know the movie, she had parents who were kind of out of the picture, distant at least. And she found herself in a world with a language that was not like her own. But the difference was that she faced it with a quiet resilience, never trying to be someone else, and she ended up finding the best of friendships with people most unlike her. And I was like, wow, where do I sign up for this experience? And the funny thing was she did this all alone, and that really inspired me. And when I was 14 and 15, it kind of transpired to me planning to run away from home, which isn't the best idea, but I actually got a chance to do that when I was 20 and I studied abroad. I was in Denmark, and whenever I got a chance, I decided to pack my bags and travel solo. And this was the time that Airbnb was still fresh. And even though my mom was adamant that I was going to get killed or something like that, I surprised her with the fact that these strangers, who knew nothing about me, who had no idea about my upbringing, made me feel the most authentic I've ever felt in my life. Because they went out of their way to make me feel included. They sat me down and invited me to dinners with their extended family, and we had long, beautiful chats. And I took that confidence with me back to New York when I continued studying. And in the weekend nights, I decided to join social anxiety meetups. And I didn't think much of them. I thought nobody would turn up. But what was really surprising was that every time there was 50 people huddled in the empty foyer of a mall at night. And we would just find refuge in each other's company. It was a beautiful moment because we talked for 4 hours, 5 hours. We didn't care that there was work tomorrow. And what was beautiful was that we talked through a range of subjects. Some of us discussed how we've experienced suicide attempts. Other people talked about how we're always going to be considered rude just because we want to give people the chance to listen. But most of it was ending with, "It's so rare that I got to talk about this." And that sentence alone made me realize that all my life, it was my insecurities that was pushing me to question things and find different opportunities that people may not usually find. And I only had them to thank. But not only that, it was my sensitivities that helped me start these conversations, but also carry the weight of them. 3 years ago, I was faced with another life decision, and I had to come back to Hong Kong because of family reasons, and it scared me because I had to come back to the place that propelled me to run away in the first place. Now, this is not one of those stories where I tell you I'm cured and I still struggle with things today. But I had a different decision. Because now I had insights and experiences that I could leverage, and it wasn't a matter of what I couldn't do, it was a matter of what I could do with them. And so going back to that story at the bar that I started, talking to so many people have made me realize what was really going on in these spaces. That there was a lot of unspoken dialogue and pressure to push people to expect only a certain type of conversation and to push people to react only in a certain way. And it reminded me of No Face from Spirited Away, which is a spirit that takes on the form of whatever the surroundings project onto him. Take it out of that surrounding and he becomes a different person. Over the years, I found a lot of different films that echo the same message of taking people out of their comfort zones, like Stranger Things and Short-Term 12, two of my favorite shows. And I decided at that point I had an opportunity to do something. Instead of running away to find belonging, I decided to forge it here. And that's when I decided to create parties for quiet people. Now, a lot of people were like, "Isn't that going to be boring?" But trust me, put a bunch of us together, and the conversation just starts rolling. And what I do is that I create and reenact outlandish movie scenarios and design games and activities that can only be solved if you talk to people that are most unlike you. Now, I've always thought that parties could only be organized by people with 2,000 followers or you have 2,000 friends. But I found strength in knowing that it's just as valid to design from the viewpoint of someone who's always felt left out in life. Understanding the nuances of what makes people feel detached, I strive to create a space that prevents that from happening. So being a pioneer comes with a lot of uncertainty. I have no idea what's going to happen from here. But I find strength and optimism knowing that at least I'll come out with a story, one that could be a Spirited Away for someone else. Thank you very much.
Wow, so we've had some really great speakers. Okay, so our last speaker is Natalie Wong. Natalie is from the UK. She comes from a corporate finance background, but now has revealed herself as a freelance artist. And she has pioneered a new genre of art and has worked with some really energetic and great brands. So please welcome Natalie to the stage.
Hi, good morning everyone. So just to give you a bit of background, I grew up in the UK and I studied law at King's College London, and I worked in finance for a couple of years, and I moved back to Hong Kong around 2012. But earlier this year, I made the decision to quit my corporate job and go into art full time. And it's really because a set of really extraordinary events happened over the past few months, which I'll talk about in a bit. So obviously today's theme is pioneer, and I believe that I'm a pioneer for two main reasons. And the first is that last year I created an artwork, and I believe it's created a new genre of art which I'd like to call street pop cubism. And secondly, I believe I'm a pioneer because the artwork, it represents a turning point in a global subculture, which is sneaker culture. So yes, as I said, like I worked in finance for a couple of years, and obviously, if I'm honest, I wasn't happy for a long time, and I wasn't very passionate about what I was doing, and I was very, very sad. But I've always done creative projects on the side, and this time I was like, I'm going to do something about it. So last year, I came up with the idea to make an artwork called 100 Paper Sneakers, and this completely changed my life. So 100 Paper Sneakers, what it is a sculpture consisting of 100 individual paper sculptures based on the Nike Air Jordan 1. And it took me over 4 months to complete, and I did it while I was working full time. And people ask me, how would you define your art? What genre does it fit into? And when I looked at it, it actually fit into 3 different categories. As you can see, I've redefined the natural curved surfaces of a sneaker into its simpler geometric lines and planes, which is how you would define cubism. There's obviously the pop art element, because I've used a globally recognized consumer object. And secondly, there's obviously the street art element, because sneaker culture, or sneakers, are essential core elements to street culture. And really within the work, there are 3 main concepts. The first concept really is that my work represents the idea that sneaker culture has turned the sneaker into an art form. Sneaker fans, they buy the sneakers, but they don't actually wear them. They collect them just like art collectors. The second concept is that we buy the meaning of an object rather than the object itself. If you think about the sneaker fans, they're not just buying the rubber or the suede or the leather, they're buying what it actually means. And I thought that was a very interesting concept to explore. And the third concept is what we choose to wear is a non-verbal communication to other people how we want to be perceived within society. And so taking these 3 concepts together in the artwork, I'm not the first artist to make art from sneakers, nor am I the first artist to make paper sneakers, but I am the first person to really conceptualize a global cultural movement within the framework of an art piece. So after I completed the artwork, I was like, okay, well, what do I do now? So I decided, okay, I'm gonna make a short video, about 1.5 minutes long, and I just post it online and let's just see what happens. And then something really crazy happened. Hypebeast, a big street culture platform, picked up on it, and they posted it on their website and also on their Instagram. And then things got really crazy. And I did not expect any of this to happen. So once it posted online, it just went everywhere. It was on the landing page of Esquire, it was in GQ Australia, it was in Spanish, it was in Chinese. It was incredibly exciting, but actually really, really scary. I have a lot of haters. And this was, I remember not being able to sleep for 2 days because my phone was exploding. And yes, it's an incredibly exciting period. But what happened after this was obviously it got a lot of attention, and Sneaker Exchange, a company in South Africa, reached out to me. Bear in mind, it's still happening while I've got a full-time job. And these guys here, Sneaker Exchange. So Sneaker Exchange is an African trading event where people can come and buy and sell sneakers. And it's gotten so big that they actually have local hip-hop artists, graffiti artists. It's become a really, really big event all over Africa. And they loved what I was doing, and said, please, fly over, bring your paper sneakers and everything like that. So of course I was like, yeah, let's do that. Very exciting. So the whole idea was they sponsored me to do an exhibition in Johannesburg, and I would showcase my 100 paper sneakers at something called the Griffin Sessions, which is a big street culture event held inside a renovated warehouse. And then 10 days prior to that, they would take me around to all these different landmarks. So you can see here there's a Soweto, took me to Constitution Hill, Cradle of Mankind. And the idea was that I would create 3 new sneaker sculptures and incorporate elements of their local culture and history within it. So here, this is the artwork displayed in full. And actually, when looked at one piece, it is actually quite large. This is 2 meters long, centimeters wide. And it was really exciting to get the feedback from the crowd, and it was the first time it's been displayed in public. Here is another one. So you can see here, unfortunately, you don't have much time to talk about the sculptures themselves, but these are the 3 that I made. And, what really happened is this was a huge turning point in my career, because I remember standing in the cradle of mankind. I'm not sure if you guys have been there, and you stand on top of the tundra and you can see miles and miles out. And I was just thinking, God, this is nuts, I just made something in my spare time, and here I am in Africa, showcasing my work. And I just remember the feeling I got when I was speaking to people about the artwork and the kind of response I was getting. And it got to the point where I can't stay in my job anymore, because this feeling, that sort of rewarding feeling, that satisfaction, that your creativity can really take you places, it changes you, it really does. So then when I came back to Hong Kong, I decided, okay, I handed in my notice and I left my job early this year. So I was like, okay, so after I left my job, I was like, okay, I'm gonna focus on artwork for real now. I'm gonna, really settle down. And then something really, really crazy happened. So I'm not sure if you guys heard of this, Crazy Rich Asians. So Crazy Rich Asians is a best-selling novel by a Singaporean author called Kevin Kwan, and it's now being produced into a major Hollywood movie. And I got invited to be a fashion buyer for this movie to see it. Really crazy. And the reason why it was so amazing, because our first Hollywood movie featuring an all-Asian lead cast, and I got to work with some of the most amazing people. So the producer for this movie is Nina Jacobson. Nina Jacobson used to work at Disney, so she's produced films like Hunger Games, Chronicles of Narnia, Pirates of the Caribbean. And my other colleagues on the costume buying team, one lady is Mary Voigt, and Mary Voigt was the lady that designed Michelle Pfeiffer's catsuit in Batman. So it was just nuts, really, working with these people. It was really, really fun. So my job involved sourcing the outfits for the movie for all the female leads, so Michelle Yeoh, Gemma Chan, Constance Wu, and the other half of it really is, I think this movie will really change the narrative for Asian actors within and how they're portrayed in Western media. So hopefully, fingers crossed, some exciting things will come off it. So after the filming wrapped, I was like, okay, gonna focus on my artwork, And then something really interesting happened. I got approached by Nike to do my first official collaboration with them. And I remember when I got the call, I was like, so exciting. And what they were saying was LeBron James was coming to Asia, and they wanted me and 2 other local artists to create something to celebrate his tour to Asia. So all they said was, the brief was, okay, well, you just need to use the Soldier 11s, which is one of his sneaker lines at Nike. So I came up with the idea to make a soldier from soldiers. So here, you see this is the original concept board. And so really, if you're familiar with a lot of sneaker art out there, a lot of the sneaker artists, they use quite large segments of the sneaker to construct something new. And I really wanted to do something very different, and I wanted to take the deconstruction process one step further. So what I thought was quite a cool idea was to actually completely rip up the sneaker and then wrap it around these polystyrene balls, and then I'd use these balls, sneaker balls, to construct the soldier as sort of building blocks. So as you can see here, these are the sneakers that I took apart, and then I wrapped into the balls. And then here's like a helmet that we made for him, and then the back piece, which is an outsole, and then down the center of the spine we used the external heel counter, and then also we made hands for the soldier using the lacing and also the pull-ups. Aha, still LeBron James. And I remember meeting him, I'm like, oh my god, it's like the biggest man I've ever met. And I was really worried because I'm really small, I'm only at 5'2", and he's like 6'8". It's like I'm gonna come up to this man's belly button or worse. So, but he was really nice, and he was really interested, and he was like, oh, how long did it take you, and things like that. And it was just an incredible experience meeting him, and that was such an awesome project. And he actually completed the sculpture himself, so there's a space within the sculpture, and he sort of placed the basketball in there, and it was like quite awesome, having LeBron James complete the sculpture. And actually, we used around 50 pairs, so I destroyed more than 50 pairs of sneakers. So whenever sneaker fans see me, they kind of run away and hide their shoes. And so here's a photo of it from the back and the front. So really coming back to the theme of pioneering. Pioneering means, for me, 2 things. It really means managing your fears and having a lot of courage. When I left my job, I didn't have the Warner Brothers job lined up. I didn't know Nike was going to come and approach me. And if I hadn't left my job, I wouldn't have been able to do these amazing things. And really, secondly, being a pioneer involves listening to your instincts and developing the ability to execute ideas consistently. When Nike approached us with the brief, the other two artists actually had a different idea, but I'm incredibly stubborn and I fought for my idea very passionately, and I managed to persuade the team that my idea was not good. So, I think that's also an important thing too. So thank you very much for listening to my speech. You can follow me on Instagram, and if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to do some Q&A, but so that not all the speakers are awkwardly standing on the stage, we're going to get a bench up here. So if the three of you want to please come have a seat. Okay, so now we'll open the floor to questions.
Great talk, everyone. Question that you have. Something that resonated with me was you said that one Friday night you got a task at 6 o'clock and you would have ordered takeout, and you just thought of a more efficient way to complete that task quicker. Would you say that you being creative has allowed you to work smart?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and it's not like, it's rocket science what I was doing and to able to do things better. I think it enabled me to work smarter, but also got you out of that pattern of just being on autopilot. So what happens a lot, I think, with me is like someone would say, oh, we need this report, and you're like, okay, and you just do it. And then, so the way my mindset changed was to say, okay, what are we trying to achieve actually? Because if I can tweak this report slightly, it's only going to take out some of the detail that we don't actually need. We've just been producing it because that's what we've always done. I can do it a lot quicker. So I think it's just, it's getting out of that autopilot mindset really made a difference too.
I always say to people, don't work hard, work smart.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, anyone else?
This one's for Natalie. I think an issue for a lot of creators, especially when you're diving into new projects, is a feeling of an imposter syndrome. You obviously went straight away from being in this corporate world to being thrown into this hugely creative sort of role and with great opportunities. Did you ever experience that? And if so, how did you manage it?
Sorry, what did you say, sorry, sister?
So we sort of, as creators, we have a bit of an imposter syndrome. So you're sort of put into situations where you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm given these opportunities, or I'm doing this work that I don't feel like I'm completely qualified to do, or I feel like I'm out of my depth, or I don't know if I'm going to be able to create something that's as good as what these people want. Did you ever feel that at all?
Very interesting question. Maybe I think I have a false sense of security. I don't know. I would say that obviously the short was very talk, but I would love to show you all the stuff that I've done before. For me, the creating projects, ideas is my life, it's my blood. I wake up in the morning and I have ideas and I just want to make them. And that's just not something that I experience. I don't think, I understand what you mean, but I just think it's just, as a creative, I don't really worry about what people think, because it's sort of, this is what I'm doing and I do my best, and I'm sorry if it, doesn't meet your expectations. And I think it's just, I don't know, my mentality is you just gotta do stuff and hope people like it and not worry too much about what people think.
If it makes you feel better, I feel like an imposter all the time. So.
Also for Natalie, congratulations, great journey,
Thank you very much.
very organic.
Thank you.
So just out of curiosity, when Nike approached you, how did they value what you were going to do? Or did you say, I'm going to do this for free, or how did you come to a,
Oh no, they pay me.
I get that, but did they have to negotiate, or was it sort of like, hey, here's our price for this sort of stuff, and you just accepted, or how
So actually very interesting. So after the video went viral, they actually approached me last year, and I actually had to turn them down because obviously I was still working and I didn't have the capacity to do a project with them at the time. But it was more that I think we had been talking for a while actually, and I think when it came down to it, it's just like it's like a client relationship. They say, okay, this is the budget. What can you do with it? So you work around and says their parameters, and sort of it's just like a normal client service provider relationship, and you try and sort of see what you can do within like the time frame and the budget that they have. Yeah.
If you ever do a pair of Vans, I'll buy that.
Okay. All right. Remember that. Thank you.
Natalie, you've done the Air Jordans. Would you just exclusivise yourself to that, or are you open to working with other iconic labels? Like one that comes to mind is Adidas and Puma, if we're going to stay on the sneaker realm. But also, as a Brit, I noticed that you call them sneakers, not trainers.
Yes, I'm so embarrassed. Okay, so the reason why I did the Air Jordan 1, as like obviously, the work was really about, it wasn't really me sort of worshipping Nike, it was more that I was interested in sneaker culture, and it's really a general consensus that the whole sneaker culture really began, like launched in 1985 with Nike Air Jordan 1. If it was any other sneaker, I would have done that, but my research showed that it was that sneaker. I definitely am open up to do other brands. As you can see, when I did the South Africa thing, it wasn't sponsored by a sneaker brand, it was sponsored by Sneaker Exchange and Monster Energy drink. So I actually did the Adidas Superstar and the Yeezys, obviously which are Adidas. So no, definitely, not exclusive to Nike.
I'd like to see a pair of Puma darts.
Okay, hook me up.
1984.
Anyone else? Okay. George.
So the question is actually for all of you. Natalie, you said that like you basically wake up with many ideas and you have like one idea a day and all that. So my question would be like for each one of you, how do you transform the idea from an idea to an actual project? Like how do you start believing in it and actually realizing it? And like if you're facing any obstacle, like how do you keep going?
I would say it's part of like being a service designer. A lot of it is Post-its, covering your room with a lot of Post-its, and it helps at least kind of like filter a lot of the ideas that you have into kind of one concrete thing that you can really action. Sometimes like when you think of ideas, they can be very grand, but when you do that, you find the thing that you can do like tomorrow, and you sort it out by like tomorrow, the next day. And by doing that, you can take things step by step. I think when I did the idea, it was really scary for me as well, because I was like, who will come? Like, who would come to like an introvert's party? And I think it's also just about sharing constantly with people and just being like, hey, like, you interested? And not taking so much offense from people who are like, no, I don't get it. That would be my best advice to keep going, just being like, pitching it forward, not as a official pitch, but just kind of sounding off with your friends and just following it.
I think I agree with that. I think for me, the biggest thing was just letting go of perfectionism and just having the goal to be produce something, not produce something perfect. And I think also just letting go of, you start with an idea and letting go of being that has to be the idea and sort of letting it evolve naturally. For me, I used to always try and map things out and be like, okay, if I only get to this, I'm going to do A, B, C, and D. But if life has taught me anything, it's that you end up getting to the most bizarre situations and places and opportunities. So you just have to start, and then you just have to keep going, and you have to get really good at just, putting yourself out there and being nervous and feeling like, oh my God, what the hell am I doing? I feel like that way every day, and it's made life more exciting.
And like, how do you get convinced that like this is something that you need to throw yourself in, or not?
I think for me, it's more, there's things that I kind of get excited about. I think, oh, this is cool, but then I kind of get over it. But there are things that I think, I've been thinking about this idea for so long now, and sometimes you don't even realize it, but Like, for example, I found a sort of a journal from the other day, and it was like 3 years ago I'd written down something that I still sort of am thinking about doing today, and I'm like, clearly that means something to me. But there is that balance, because maybe your idea just really sucks and you should let it go. So I think you kind of, to this point, getting people's feedback and being open to maybe you have to adapt your idea somehow. But I think if you're honest with yourself and you really take the time to think, there's things that you kind of believe that is a great idea no matter what. But you also have to think, what are you trying to achieve? Because there's things that I would love to do, and even if I do it and no one else cares about it, I still want to do it because I'm doing it for my own interest, or I'm doing it because 2 other people in the world will be interested, and that's success. But if you're defining success by how many people are going to buy your product and things like that, then that's a different kind of goal. So it really comes down to what are you trying to achieve and what makes you happy and that kind of thing.
I agree with what they said. I think the only thing I'd like to add is coming to an idea, like when you know whether or not an idea is good and whether to do it, I think for me personally, when an idea is good, you have this urgency to create it, like this burning urgency. It's like, I've got to do this. And what I mean is, like, you go to sleep thinking about the idea. You wake up after 3 hours because you just can't wait to get on it. That's when you know the idea needs to be made. And it's only when you have that kind of motivation that you can do like really amazing things.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Chaz, and firstly, each story was absolutely inspirational and motivating for myself. What I would like to know from sort of all of you, very briefly maybe, is how do you find your creative flow state? How do you know when you're getting in the zone? Is it a time of day? Do you need some kind of ritual practice to get into your artistry?
Kind of 2 things which are totally contradictory, so it probably makes it sound crazy. One is that sometimes you just get into it. So even, and this is not so much creative, but like I like math problems, for example. And there were times when like I could spend a whole Sunday night for hours just trying to solve a math problem. So no matter what time of day, or when you've got something really cool to go to and you're like, God, I didn't even want to go because I just want to finish this project. So sometimes I think you just naturally get into that state. But I also think what's important is that you don't focus on trying to get into that state. I think you also have to just get into the practice of turning up every day and trying to get into it. There's that book Bird by Bird, if anyone's read it, and it's talking about writing, and it's just, say you're a writer, like just write a shitty first draft and it's going to suck, but whatever, just do it, spend the time and dedicate yourself, and then the next time you draft it'll get better and better. So I think you have to create the flow as well.
Okay, I think for me, I always said that creativity is not like a light you can switch on and off. It's like, oh, be creative, that doesn't work like that. But I think creativity, I feel like, is like a muscle, and I think the more you practice, the better you are at using it. And I think sometimes, if an idea isn't coming, just play. Creativity is all about play. It's not about what the client thinks or what the end goal is. It's all about you just enjoying yourself and experimenting. And I think that's one way that I use to help me if I'm stuck or if an idea is not forthcoming.
For me, it's my perspective is kind of like treating yourself to experiences. I think a lot of the times we are so we're like, I don't deserve something. I don't deserve to go to this place. I need to wait for a friend to go to travel. And just saying, look, if I give this advice to someone else and tell a friend to go travel to explore their mind space, you should be able to do that just for yourself and going like on a date with yourself, essentially. That's like what I love doing. Like I have this ritual now where I can't go a week without like watching a movie alone. I'm just like, I need to just do that with myself, and that's where I get my ideas. And if you treat yourself like how you would treat other people, I think it'll start that creative flow.
Anyone else? George?
I'm guessing there's a bunch of quiet people in the audience who might be a bit shy by their very nature to ask you, Clarence, when the next party for quiet people is. So if you could please let us know where, when, and how to sign up, that'd be great. Thanks.
I'm actually doing one for Halloween. It's going to be different, so the theme of it is Baby Driver. I don't know if any of you have watched it, but it's this Sunday actually, if anyone's interested, and the idea is we're reenacting a scenario to share how you would react if you were blackmailed into becoming a getaway driver, and all the activities are about speed, reaction, and communicating kind of directions for other people who aren't like you, and you're going to be formed into your own crew, like the movie, and all the games are inspired by the movie.
How do we find out more about that? Alright, is this exclusive, not for...
No. It's just like, I haven't talked about it as much. So our thing is called Teleporters. If you go to Facebook, just look up Teleporters. We're a really small community. I just started earlier this year. And on the events page, you'll see the Baby Driver game event.
Has anyone ever gotten kicked out of the parties for quiet people for being less quiet after they attend?
See, the funny thing is, like, I get questions a lot pitching to people. I have a lot of extroverted friends, and they're like, one of the most popular questions is, but I'm loud. Aren't you, like, being judgmental to loud people? And then I said, I'm not kicking out loud people. I just want, this is designed for people who are quiet, but if you're willing to experience something that's a bit lay low, and something that's a bit more intimate, because we try and cap the events to 30, and like I try and remember everybody's names, and so to kind of introduce everyone to each other, then you're very welcome to kind of be a part of it. And so my loud friends are like, okay.
Great, thank you. Thank you to all three speakers, and I think it's wonderful that everyone's had such an amazing story to tell and been able to share with all of us. So everyone, please give a round of applause. George, the host, will now say a few words.
Yes, thank you everyone for coming. Thanks for putting me on the spot there. And thank you three, that was really great. We've got Simon Fuller who's going to say a couple words as well. He's got some awesome little product that he'd like to share with everyone. But yeah, feel free to mingle, stay until about 10 o'clock. If you want to help me move some furniture back to where they started, that'd be great too. But thank you everyone. And here's Simon.
Good morning. Well, it's 59 days to Christmas. So, with that in mind, being a bit of an artist and a creative that I am, and just doing something because I had an idea and couldn't sleep and just got on with it, and because I love Hong Kong trams, I've designed, and the winner is, this is the taxi one, a card that is designed from photographs of 3 taxis. New York taxi, a black cab, and a Hong Kong taxi, and I've spent a lot of time in each of those. And the nomination for Best Director, no, sorry. Now, this is my Hong Kong tram card. Now, those of you who didn't know or weren't aware, earlier this year I did a photographic exhibition called Ding Ding. Being a Melbourne boy, I was born on a tram. Not really, I was born in hospital. And yeah, my love of Hong Kong trams has inspired me to create this Christmas card or gift card. They're blank on the inside, so they can be for any occasion you like. Friends got one for a divorce, but that's another story. So I'm selling my gift cards online on Etsy, and the store is called 852 Hong Kong on Etsy, and it's the words, not the number. And also on my website, which is 852.net, and the website is the words, not the numbers, so it's EIGHT 52. And yeah, look, if anyone's needs some cards, come and have a chat to me afterwards. And yeah, thanks for your time and happy Friday, and have a good weekend.
Okay, that's it. So thanks everyone. Stay safe, Halloween weekend. If anyone's in LK, if you see a lot of colorful loofahs, say hi to me. So, thanks.